That would have been funny for you guys, eh? Imagine if I just bailed it then. Best conference ever. Sorry.
I was just going to ask, what's your personal perspective on what's your interpretation of Genesis, and what do you think the significance of that is, and how we should approach that when we're talking to people who are non-Christians who would come from that sort of secular background?
Yeah, great question. And whenever you do think about the science question, this comes up a little bit. And so I was a little bit sneaky in my talk. I didn't put it in there because I knew it would come up in Q&A. And so I could kind of add that on later, not take up my minutes with that. So creation evolution, massive thing, isn't it, for our current culture. My personal position, this will be underwhelming again, I'm pretty elastic on it, meaning I'm like, yeah, I think there's room theologically and philosophically that God could have used a longer process, something like evolution. Like, sometimes when I was doing more science myself, I really struggled with some of the explanations they offered. I thought, well, that's pretty far out there. I mean, obviously there's not enough time for those mutations to make that much progress. And so I saw scientific difficulty. Philosophically and theologically, I'm kind of become more open to it. But I also think the Bible is true, and God's given so much reason to think that. So how do you take Genesis 1? Do you take it in a very straightforward way, Genesis 1 and Genesis 2? Well, I think that's problematic then, because then you do run into tensions within the text. So as a good theologian, you want to go text v text so that you're letting the Bible interpret the Bible, not like, well, my view of the world's this, therefore I'm superimposing that on the Bible. So Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 do present some tensions. So for instance, Genesis 1 has God making plants and everything on the world on a particular day. Is it 3 or 4? And then in Genesis 2, they don't come about until well after God created Adam on day 6. And so when you read that, you go, oh, there's a tension there. How do I deal with that tension? Do I just go, well, the Bible's wrong? Or do I go, what is the author trying to convey that in this chapter he would use this language and in this chapter it would use this language? So for instance, chapter 1, there is an evening and a morning before the creation of the sun and the moon on day 4. So what that is a bit of an in-text inference for any reader in history to go, oh, maybe this isn't kind of just speaking in a purely literalistic way. So for instance, one of the best examples I know of is you're made in the image of God. Well, no one takes that literally, because God's not a body, he's not a physical being, he's a spiritual being. And so therefore, you automatically know intuitively not to take that literally, but it is true. So just because something's not literally true, it doesn't mean it's not true. So I'm still wrestling with it. I believe Genesis is absolutely true, but I ask the hard questions, what is it saying? And primarily, the big things Genesis is saying is that the agent, the person behind every aspect of creation, whatever timeline you're going to go off, the person behind every aspect of creation is God. Like, he didn't struggle to create, did it by his word. And creation was good. I mean, that's huge, right? No one believed that. Like Plato and the kind of Gnosticism that arose later was creation was kind of bad in some way. But the Bible says creation's good. So, I think Genesis is true, but the way that we read Genesis is not as straightforward as it might seem first time. But I think that's one of those things that you figure out once you've settled on the matter of who Jesus is. So I think you can be a Christian and believe that God used a long evolutionary process. I'm not sure I hold that. But you can also be a Christian and just like take the text as straightforward as you want and go, yeah, I believe it was created recently in a short amount of time. That's fine. Christians differ on it. So in evangelism, I would say I don't ever feel the need to convince someone on a view of creation before I introduce them to Jesus. I always go Jesus and then I'll go, yeah, let's wrestle with this. So yeah, I'm probably a bit too open-handed with that. Some people would tell me I need to be more close-handed. I don't know.
Great.